Hello, you absolute legends. Welcome back to Life on the Ranch. I'm the Matterhorn, and today on the Shieldborn, we're going to sharpen that knife. So, let's test it out before we start. See how razor dull it really is. Well, that's pretty dull. Now you've seen it before. Now let's get into it. You're going to need yourself some stones. I got a 400 and 1,000 grit wet stones. I got a nice puddle of water here to keep them wet in. So we're going to start submerging our 1,000 grit up. And from 1,000, we're going to go to 3,000, 8,000. Then we're going to move on to a polishing compound, which is around a 15,000. And then we're finally going to true the edge with a leather strop, which will just remove any micro burrs that might be hiding on it. If you don't have a leather strop, you can also use what's known as a sharpening steel or a ceramic sharpening steel. Both will work, although the leather strop is just a little bit better. Now you'll notice I had the setup of more of a Pro Series sharpening set. But if you don't have as many fancy stones as what I have, not a worry in the world. You can still get razor sharp knives with just your standard cheap stones. I got this whole kit off of Amazon. It was around 60-70 bucks. So if you look, you can find some good ones. One that I'm looking at investing in is called a tumbler rolling sharpener. It's got a diamond honing edge, it's got a steel polishing edge, and then a leather strop. It's about 120 bucks on Amazon, but it will be worth it. It's kind of like all these stones in one without all these stones. Now you can either have a wet stone that's wet, or you can have it in oil. The options are optional. You'll notice on here I have an angle on my knife, so it helps to hold my knife at just the right angle. You'll notice some blades have 15 degrees, some blades have 20 degrees. I have mine set for a 15-degree angle. So I'm going to adjust this so I have a bit of clearance. So you want to start at what's known as the heel of your knife. Work along the blade, the edge, all the way to the tip of your knife in one single stroke. Doing one side, counting the number of strokes that you do as you go. You want to keep just a nice, light, easy pressure. As this piece here comes off the stone, you don't adjust your angle. You get used to keeping it on that angle. This is my first time sharpening this knife. It was nice and sharp when I got it, but it's long overdue for a sharpening. These stones are brand new. That's why they're still nice and flat and level. Because the knife wasn't super dull, I didn't need to start at a 400 grit. I could start on a nice easy 1,000. That's about 15 on that edge. I have a nice light so I can check it out. It's nice edges starting to develop. Versus on this side, there's not as loud of an edge there. So then we flip it over and we do it again. I keep just a little bit of pressure on there. And then you go again. Thing's a little bit irritating for me. But if you don't really know what you're doing, or you're not used to sharpening your own knives at home, use that to help you get used to the angles. I've been sharpening my own knives for years now, so I'm used to an angle. So when you do it again, you just rinse and repeat on both sides for a little while. You want to do an equal number on both sides, and then move on to the next grit. I know all of you absolute legends have knives at home. You have kitchen knives, more precisely. Pocket knives, woodworking knives, you know, carving knives. We all have knives, we all have to use them. We might as well keep them sharp, legends. So if you like learning how to keep a knife sharp and maintaining a good true edge on your knife, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. It really helps spread the channel to other legends just like yourself who also like to learn how to keep a knife razor sharp. Alright, now we're ready to move on to the next grade of stone. I'm done with this one, so I'm just going to set it aside for now. So legends, if you look at your knife underneath a microscope, you'll notice the edge, my finger's representing the edge, kind of look like this. Each finger represents a tooth on the knife. As you use your knife and wear and tear goes along, your teeth start to go like this. And then if you grab yourself something like a sharpening steel, you can take those teeth and then bend them back into shape. But eventually, every so often, the teeth are just going to start missing and you'll have fewer and fewer. So you'll have, you know, your teeth will start to look like this on your knife, and you know, eventually like that. And that's what gets it dull, and it starts to push out again. You can push them back and you start breaking off teeth, and you know, before you know it, you're missing a lot of teeth on your knife. So then when you put it back on the stone to get it sharp again, you bring all those teeth right back onto your knife, and you look just like this. That really fine razor sharp point. It's a beautiful thing when it's done right. So that was 1,000 grit. Now we're going to move on to our next whetstone. Let it drip for a second, and here we go. We are now moving on to our 3,000 grit, which is 3 times as fine, which will put on even more refined edge. So again, the same number of strokes on each side. And you should be able to hear the knife grinding the entire length of the blade. You should hear more of that grinding sound as more of your blade gets onto the knife. It'll start off with just a little bit. So you'll be able to hear it going from the entire length of the edge. You'll notice that my knife edge has a bit of a curve on the end. So the reason I swing it like that is to help get all the way out to the very tippy tip of the tip. Now that we're midway through it, let's give it the old paper test again, see how we're doing for an edge. Look at that, legends. We've already got a bit of an edge going on to it. So you see the edge that we started out with, rough, jagged, barely cuts. Now look at that, smooth, crystalline. Now that, legends, is an edge. Of course, if I could hold on to the paper and keep it somewhat stiff. So that's how you know your knife is starting to get sharp. After 3,000, we're moving on to 8,000. So we're going to take that edge and make it even more fine and refined. You know, we'll just grab a fresh piece of paper for the next couple of cuts. So you can see that these cuts really are just as good as I claim them to be. So the more that you go into finer and finer grits on your knife, legends, the sharper and sharper the edge is going to be on your knife. And the sharper the edge, the longer it'll last. So when you're using your knife, every time you go to use it, go ahead and take out your sharpening steel and just run it up and down the sharpening steel a couple of times. right back in 1 second here, legends. Now I can hear what you're thinking, legends, but Matterhorn, how do we use our sharpening steel? You've talked about it, but you've never showed us how to actually use it. So what you want to do is take your knife and about the same angle you sharpen it on, just run it down on either side. Just come down like so, bring it along the whole length of the blade. Start at the heel, work your way to the tip. Heel, tip, heel, tip, heel, tip, heel, tip. The reason I'm not using this knife is because we're sharpening it and it doesn't need its edge to be retrued. What it needs is to be retrued. So as you can see, this was just a plain white stone. Now look at all that metal residue all over it. I've been doing approximately 15 runs per side. Now on the 3000 grit, I only did 15 on there. On the 1000, I did 30. On the 8000, I'm doing about 30. Now the reason I have so many different sharpening stones is because I have very fancy knives. This knife here cost $350. It's all hand pounded steel, folded Damascus. It's got a very rare type of wood in the handle, very nice. It's a full tang handle, which means that this blade runs all the way through the entirety of the handle. This knife is Shun. I believe it's a Japanese brand. It's Japanese steel. Japanese and German steel are the best steels on the market when it comes to knives. Now that we're done with our stone, legends, we're going to move it on. Except this time we're going to go the opposite direction. See, if you go in, you're going to cut it, which means you have to take it back against it. You want to take it to your leather strap, which I have nothing set up to be able to hold it for me, so I can't really strap it properly. So I'm just going to put my knee on, and I'm just going to... I'll be right back. I got to reset. You can kind of see it, eh? So now, just like on the stone, you want to go up and down on the knife. You might remember in those old barber movies or your grandpa's barber where they took their straight edge and they ran it back and forth on the leather strap. The purpose of that, legends, is to remove any micro burrs that might happen to be on the strap. Let's test it now. As you can see, legends, that That is a legendarily sharp knife. See, when it can just cut a piece of paper with the greatest of ease, you know it's sharp. Well, it could be a little easier, I suppose, eh? But you can see how clean and clear those cuts are. That's how you know you've got a sharp knife. Well, legends, today on our channel we have X number of subs. We could use X plus 1. You could be that absolute legend and sub. You can be that plus 1. Which brings us to the next part of our video. So go ahead and be that plus 1 sub, legends. If you remember earlier, I said these stones were brand spanking new. Which is true, they are brand spanking new, so I have no need to use this on them. But you might be wondering, Matterhorn, what are you unwrapping now? Well, legendary legends, what I'm unwrapping is known as a stone leveler. So you notice how it has all these grooves in the stone? So the idea of that is you take that stone, and you put it on this stone. You go back and forth. So that'll take your stone, which might have a big concave in it from years of use, so you won't hardly see it, but it won't be super flat. You take this stone and you just kind of press a little bit lightly on it, back and forth. And that'll take your stone and make it super flat, super smooth again for you. So that way legends can have nice, flat, smooth stones to work with. If you have a stone that looks like a valley, you're not going to get a proper, true, sharp knife. You'll get a weird, wonkily sharpened knife. It won't be the kind of sharp that you want. Well, legends, thanks for tuning in. I'm the Matterhorn. This has been the Shieldborn Ranch. You are legendary, and we'll see you in the next one.